Hello my fellow creatives. Today in this video I am going to show how I put together a tag book to use with my monthly devotionals from By the Well for God. Now I am going to be using a couple of additional things that do not come with the kit. I like to use these titles that they've been putting in the extra sticker pack. If you don't want the titles, that's fine. You can do a tag book however you like. I also like to get the paper packs. They come in two sizes, 6x6 and 6x8. There's complimentary paper that comes out with each kit. It is an add-on. You have to buy it separately. I like the 6x8 because then it gives me extra pieces, even if you're working in a 6x6 format. So I get the 6x8. Now what I like to do is use this paper for my tags. I have also in the past used paper from my scrapbook paper stash. So whichever way you want to do it is fine. Because these are double-sided papers, you can cut your tags and then flip them. So you can have one that faces this way, one that faces this way. And I like to try and do that. And then if I want to supplement for any reason, I supplement too with other papers from my stash. A lot of people keep their paper in the plastic. I find it hard to slip them in and out. I just like to use a little binder clip, and I have a binder clip on the collection for each month, and I keep them stored that way in a little bin like this, and so I can flip through and find them. I also have a drawer full of paper scraps. So, okay, so again, these come with the extra sticker pack. And I mix mine all together and put them in, so I couldn't tell you right now which ones came with the kit and which ones were extra. So the first thing that I do is I take each piece of paper, I pick one of each design, and then I cut it right down the middle. So this is a 6-inch, so I'm cutting strips that are 3 inches. Once I've cut the 3 inches, then I'm going to cut those to 6 inches. So it takes a little bit off the top, which is what all of these come from. Now, sometimes depending on your paper, like you see the rings here, your two sides are going to look different. But then I also adjust when I'm cutting my 6. Now you don't have to do this, but this is what I choose to do, is when I am cutting my 6-inch, I kind of look. There's one paper here in particular that you do want to pay attention to, and that's the one that has the door. Let me see if I can find that real quick. No, I didn't use all of them yet. There. So, for instance, you want to pay attention because some of your papers, it will make a difference where you cut the end off of. If I had cut off down here on this strip, I would have chopped off the door. So you want to make sure that when you're cutting your 6 inches, you're looking at both sides of your paper. This side, if I was only looking at this side and I cut it off, it wouldn't matter. But then all of a sudden when I flip it over, if I've chopped off my door, right, I don't want to do that. So I want to make sure I'm chopping off this piece at the top. So just a little tip to pay attention and look at both sides of your paper when you're cutting that extra piece off of the edge. Okay, so now I'm going to set these aside. Now that I have all of these, I have all my pieces of paper, but I do need to make the tag top out of them. So I want to cut these little pieces. Now I know there's a lot of people out there who have done tag books. This video I've really geared for the beginner, someone who's not made a tag book before that wants to know how to make a tag book. So if you've made tag books, you're going to already know a lot of the stuff that I'm sharing. Let me see what I did on this one. I think I did 1 inch on this one. I might have come down. This is why you do a pattern, because you can adjust. All right, so if I look at this one, it comes out to 1.25 inches and 1.25 inches. So if I want all 3 sides to be the same size, like I did on this one, these are each 1.25 inches, which means I had to gauge that differently down here. You can also do this on a piece of cardboard and then have it all the time, but I tend to make tags of different sizes, so I don't have one set size that I do. And I'm going to come down on this thinner line. This one's a little bit thicker, so I'm going to line it up. And I want to come down because the diagonal is going to be longer. I'm going to come down 3/4 of an inch on each side on this one. This is on a 3-inch wide tag. So I'm going to come 3/4 of an inch. If you want to make sure that your line is straight, you can always lay a ruler down. Just make sure that your marks are in the right place, okay? So what I want to do is I want to find the center of my tag. So this is a 3-inch. So if I come in 1.5 inches, this is the center right here. Okay. Now I'm going to come out. Let's see. I want to come out 1/2 inch is 1 inch. I want this to be 1.25 inches, which means it's a little tricky because I'm going to go right in between. And on this one, I don't have the lines for 1/8 of an inch. So I'm going to do, this gives me 1 inch. I want it to be 1.25 inches, which means I have to go right in between here. Now I'm going to show you how to make sure both sides are perfectly even. There's my marks for one side. If you want to draw a line, you can, or you can use your scissors and just cut from line to line. I'm going to go ahead and lay that down just so you can see it. Okay, so here's my corner, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut right on that line. And now to make sure that this side is the same, you can't just turn this and lay the same color up because your measurement is slightly different here. So make sure that you flip this over to the opposite side, and that way it will be the same, and then lay it down, okay? Because you're doing a mirror image, so don't lay it down with the same color up. Do it that way. And if you lay that right on top of there, make sure you have it lined up, and you can do your line. All right, now I made my line, and I'm going to cut on that line. Okay, so there is the top of my tag. Okay, and that's about as close as you're going to get it. It's going to have an optical illusion on some patterns because all these lines trick the eye. So now what I'm going to do is on here, and I really like to use the pencil. Now, if you don't want them all to be the same, I like when they're on the ring, when they're on this ring, I like them to line up. If you're not that particular, you can just take your scissors and you can just cut those corners off. Just be aware that every tag is going to be at a slightly different angle. If you want your tags to all be at the same angle, then you're going to want to have some sort of a pattern, and you're going to want to lay it down like this. So you basically just lay it on each tag. Go with the lighter side so that you can see the mark. And I do pencil because I don't want ink showing on it later. The other thing is, look, if you want, these don't matter, but if you want it a certain way, the other thing is to look at it and decide, do you want that going a certain direction? Remembering that you're cutting those corners off. This is almost a gray. It goes from light and it gets darker. If I turn it this way, then it's darker and it gets lighter. So, you know, it's just one of those things to look at if you want to do that. Okay. And so I'm going to go through and I'm going to do this on each one of my tags. Now again, you should be flipping, okay? Because if I were to do this and cut my corners off, then I turn it over, I'm going to be disappointed. So do make sure that you're not just slapping this down. You've got to look at both sides. You want to make sure you know that the top of that tag is in the place that you want it to be, so that you're not cutting off a design that you want to keep. And I like to go to the lighter side. This flower definitely is growing up this way. I can see the bottom of the stem down here. It's, you know, totally up to you. For me, I want it to be more visually appealing, so I'm going to take it off at the top. I've got all of these ready to trim with the scissors, but what I'm going to do, since I know that this was a 3-inch wide tag, I can write tag 3-inch wide, and I can save this for later. The other thing that I can do if I want to is go ahead, I've got my center mark, I can go ahead and look at my punch. I can decide how far down I want it. I'm going to look at it this way so I can see the line and come down however far I want that from the top. Let's see if I actually get it centered here. Oh, it's slightly off, but it's not bad. Yeah, so I would want that over a little bit more, but really it's not going to be that big of a deal. The problem is once I start punching, if I use this as my guide instead of using one of my tags, I can move it over slightly. But then I can just kind of stick this somewhere, and every time I make a tag of a different width and I make one of these, you can save them, and then that way you have them. Now over time, just from going against this edge, this is going to start furling over a little, and it's going to get a different size, and then you'll have to make a new one. You can also make them out of chipboard or cardboard, and then you can just put them on a ring and save them for whenever. If you make a lot of tags, it's kind of nice to have a pattern already made. You could also make a pattern for the entire tag if you want, but I'm not big on tracing the whole tag. I would rather just cut my paper to size and then do my corners. So there's lots of options. You can do whatever you want. You watching are going to probably come up with ideas and go, oh, I know a better way to do that. And that's just fine, because that's how we learn from each other. All right, now that these are done, I'm going to go through, and I'm using my long scissors here just because I want to get on that line and I want to see the blade go on there. And I'm going to go through and I'm going to cut all these corners off, one right after the other. If one gets a little bit off, remember, it's not a big deal. They're close enough that they're going to look good visually when they're on the ring, and that's what we're going for. The thing about doing this in pencil is if you end up with a little bit of it on the edge of your tag, you can easily erase it. If you were to do this in pen or marker and you cut too far off the line, you're going to see that line. So if you're inking and distressing, you might be able to cover it up. I just like, when I'm doing anything that involves a pattern, I like to start with pencil because then I know I can remove it. I also do that sometimes with lettering. If I'm not sure if something's going to be centered just right, I'll do it in pencil first, and then I'll come back and go over it with my pen. Okay, I've got all my corners done, and you can see they're relatively close. Might be just a hair off on some, but that's okay because they'll look fine together. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and I'm going to go ahead and put that hole in the top. Now later, if I overlay something where the hole is when I'm doing the tag, then I'll need to punch it again. But when I make these tags, for the sake of time and everything, I like to go ahead and put them on the ring and have them ready so that as I'm going through each day, I can select one, make it, put it on the ring, and then they all stay together like that. And then the other thing is if I don't get it done right away, I can hang it up and I can come back and work on it at any time. So the nice thing about using a pattern on top like this is when you do miss and make the hole bigger, you're only doing it to the pattern. You're not doing it to one of your tags. I used to lay a tag on top of another tag and punch, but I like doing it better this way because then I'm not making the hole on one of my tags look funny. I have a crocodile, so I could punch with that and I could stack punch several at a time, but I worry about it sliding. So on something like this where I want it to be relatively even, I'd rather just go through and punch it. So you can see on here, this is not a perfect circle anymore because my punch moves around. The nice thing is because these were all punched only one time, the circle is a circle. What I like to do is go ahead and put them on my ring. I will decide later which colors I use, and you'll notice I'm going to flip them as I go. They're not in a specific order when I first put them on here. They're just on so that I can see all the different colors of paper. And then when I go to do each day, I can see all of the options that I have. And I can choose a paper for that day depending on what type of design I want to do. Okay, so now I have my tag ready. Because there's 8 sheets of paper, you actually have 16 different ones, and there's only 14 days. But if you want to have a cover tag and then a back tag, that comes out to 16, right? So you have 14 days plus you have your cover and your back. Now, sometimes I will put, for my covers, I'll put it on a piece of chipboard. Sometimes I don't. It just depends. That'll give it a nice sturdy cover. And so whichever tag you want to be your back and your front, you can mount it to chipboard. And then you won't see the opposite side. You'll have to use, usually I try to use like a solid piece of scrapbook paper to put on the opposite side of the cover. So right now I can look at these and I can see all of the different papers for the collection. Just like that. And so when I make a tag, I can pick the one that I think best goes with that day, with that title, whatever design I want to do. A lot of times I'll pick out my scripture cards, journaling cards, whatever I want to do for that day, and then I'll find one of these pieces of paper that I think best goes with those elements that I picked out. I'll do that tag, and then once I do that tag, I'll put it in the front. And so these are already ready to go. All I have to do is decide which one am I doing for this day of the devotion, and I have it ready to go. And then when you're all done, you add a front and a back, and you're good. Now, these little things, I don't throw these away. And let me tell you why. Because if I'm placing something, let's say I place this card and I want to write a scripture or something, or maybe I want to put a sticker on it, then I am going to use these in some way. So these can be great for corners, right? These can be decorative elements where it looks like a little photo corner, and I can take that and maybe I want to do 2 corners and I find 2 that are from the same sheet of paper. I can do little photo corners like that. So I'm all about using all the pieces and parts. So yep, I'll glue those on top and make a cute little design. So don't just, suddenly, oh, these are just trash, I'm going to throw them away. There's lots of other things you could do. If you wanted to get super creative, you could use these corners and make pinwheels or something like that. So, be as creative as you want, but there's other things you could do with these to make little flowers or pinwheels or something like that. So, all right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this. Please do subscribe if you're not a subscriber and you'd like to see more videos and know when they come out. And also make sure to press that like button if you like this video. I hope to be doing many more tutorials, especially for beginners when it comes to Bible journaling and bookmaking. Have a wonderful and blessed day. Bye-bye.